Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Peasant and Indigenous Press Forum. We will be starting shortly. We just want to make sure everyone can go ahead and continue joining us in the Zoom. So please, if you haven't already, please grab a glass of water. And it is truly an honor to be here with all of you. I would also just like to request everyone who is joining us to please make sure that your mics are on mute. I would really appreciate that. So please just take a second to make sure your mic is on mute. All right, so just for the sake of time, we are going to go ahead and get started as people continue to trickle in. Thank you everyone for tuning in to today's Peasant and Indigenous Press Forum. It is truly an honor to be here with all of you. The purpose of this event is to create space to center and amplify peasant and Indigenous voices who all too often are sidelined from conversations in spaces that hold immense power, despite facing the harshest effects of climate change. I would like to start off by introducing myself. My name is Manpreet Kaur Kalra. I will be moderating today's forum. I'm a social impact and equity advisor and anti-racism educator. My work navigates the intersection of impact communication and sustainable global development by focusing on the interconnectivity of economic, social, political, and climate justice. I host a podcast called Art of Citizenry, in which I approach these topics surrounding global development through a decolonial lens. We are gathering here today after the UN's Climate Change Conference, during which we saw global leaders develop and promise insufficient solutions without consulting those who continue to defend the Earth's biodiversity, further silencing peasant and Indigenous voices. It is time we listen to those who are on the front lines, which is exactly the goal of this forum. Today, we are joined by 10 groups from around the world, each of which will be sharing the injustice they continue to navigate in the face of globalization and agricultural industrialization. Each group will share the latest news in their efforts to reclaim sovereignty over their land, resources, and food systems. This forum is an opportunity for all of you, the international media organizations, and Indigenous and peasant groups to connect. We have organized our program into 4 sections: Indigenous autonomy, farming deemed as an act of terrorism, development against farmers, and big industry. So just before we get started and I hand it over to our first group, I just want to take a moment to request that everyone, as I said earlier, please mute your mics. We want to make sure that we are centering the voices of the peasant and Indigenous groups that are here and taking time to join us today. I also want to mention that it is important that we approach these conversations with humility and take some time to really understand the complexities surrounding the issues that we will be hearing about. Please respect the speakers and their experiences. And also for each of us, we need to take some time to acknowledge that many of us might be approaching these conversations with some form of unconscious bias. So I request each and every one of us to just acknowledge that and take note of it. Some of the details surrounding the topics that we will be talking about today can be quite triggering. And so if you need to step away at any point, we completely understand. These are issues that are truly affecting the immediate livelihoods and are essentially an immediate threat to many of the groups that are going to be joining us and sharing their insights. Please respect their need for privacy when they ask for it. There were guidelines that were shared with each of you. I please request that you take some time to just make sure you review those as well. Our goal is to host these opportunities quarterly, and we hope that you'll continue to join us to amplify these very important issues and stories. With that, I would like to share some details about the interpretation features. My friends are going to be also sharing important details with you in the chat. So please feel free to use the chat to get any support that you may need around any technical issues you are experiencing. So in regards to the interpretation feature, at the bottom of your screen, you will see that there is a globe icon. And what you're going to do is go ahead and click on that and pick the language of your choice. There will be several presentations in Spanish, French, and Tagalog. For all of the presentations, we will have simultaneous translations in English, French, and Spanish. The first topic we will be covering today is Indigenous autonomy. We'll be hearing from 3 different groups, each of which will be presenting for 4 minutes. After their presentation, I will be officially opening up a period of 4 minutes for questioning after I've taken a minute to just ask any clarifying questions on behalf of all of you. So after the Q&A period for each presentation, please use your raise hand feature at the bottom of your screen. We will call you in order of the hands that are raised. Please keep your mic on mute, of course, until that point. So with that, let's go ahead and get started with our first section. Indigenous communities hold the ancestral knowledge of the land and our ecosystems. They are the experts of how we can build resilient solutions to address the irreversible harm of climate change. To better explore the topic of Indigenous autonomy, I would like to welcome Majed Velasquez Veliz of COSHIKOX from Peru. So Majed, the floor is yours.
Muy buenos días.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much.
So the speaker is speaking in his language. Good morning in Shipibo-Conibo language. My name is Majed Velasquez Veliz. I am a representative of the Council Shipibo-Conibo Shitibo, or also known as COSHIKOX, excuse me, which is a self-governance indigenous organization, one of the 53 indigenous populations in the Amazon, which are considered owners of the Amazon. I really hope that you don't get surprised when you hear the word owners. But rather than owners, we have been treated as renters, in fact, whose rights have been reduced to the minimum expression. They have been cornered in very small communities, and they have deprived of the use of the natural resources. As renters, we have suffered many threats. For example, the use of our territories for the agro-industry plantations, as well as hydrocarbon explorations, drug dealing, which is resulting in the death of many of our leaders. It makes us feel and learn that we are the owners, not because we just want to, or because we have a particular vision of the world, But because we want, in a way, to tackle a situation which may end up in the extinction of our folk, of our people. We have been living in this earth for more than 2,000 years. In the Amazon, we have been in contact with many other cultures. We have embraced the Western culture, and they have lectured us of, they have attempted to lecture us how we should live, but we have resisted, and we have tried to find alternatives, but through our lens, our worldview. So our cooperative, Shipibo Konibo Shetibo, the COSHIKOX, provides good stuff, but we don't want to become rich. But we have in mind the purpose of granting food sovereignty. You may ask, well, perhaps these people want to live in the past, as they used to do thousands of years ago, and we want to answer that we don't want to, we are not anchored in the past. We don't want to live like we used to in the past. We want to embrace the future. And this is the reason why we stand firm in our values, and we want to protect the Amazon. We have been restricted, and we have been hindered the way we administer our land. And it is today that we would like to make a call before you, journalists of the world, to help us to exert this self-governance on the Amazon. Not with the purpose that I mentioned before, but so that we can preserve our world, and we can support and the creation of food sovereignty, and as a result, the survival of our culture and our people and our relationship with nature. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Majed, for sharing that. You know, I wanted to just ask some follow-up questions to you. And just so all the press that is joining us today, if you do have a question, please go ahead and use the raise hand feature that you see at the bottom of your screen in Zoom. Majed, my question to you is, you mentioned that you don't want to live in the past. Can you talk about what are the broader implications of the work of COSHIKOX?
Thank you, Carla. We are often seen as cultures from the past through the lens of modernity. We are often labeled as a society that is pretty rudimentary, and we are often labeled as a culture from the past. We don't feel that way at all. We feel that we are modern, and we can establish a dialogue, an intercultural dialogue, so we can establish some bonds with modern and past knowledge by making use of modern technology, so we can have some help in order to face some challenges. For example, we in our cooperative COSHIKOX, we have seen how the land has been impoverished. So we need to find responses using our knowledge, because we have a lot of knowledge when it comes to agriculture. So we would like to take back our land, but we are cornered further and further away. So the way we traditionally have cultivated the land is using different seeds, not monocultures. So we would like to do so that we can live and face climate change. We know that the the threat of climate change is looming, and we would like to safeguard all that knowledge. That knowledge is also linked to certain seeds, to certain plants.
Mhm.
And that is the reason why we'd like to create a seed bank.
Thank you so much. That's really helpful to understand and hear. I do want to take one question from the press. We have a question from Aurora Sola. Please go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Thank you. Hola, Majed. Mi pregunta es si tienes conocimientos.
I'm ahead. I would like to ask you whether you have any knowledge of Cuencas Sagradas and the plan of local biodiversity, which has been developed by Ecuador. Yes, we are a bit far from the border with Ecuador. We are more bordering with Brazil. We know what you are doing and we support happily what you're doing. However, the area where we live is next to Acre, which is a river that runs parallel to that area. We are an organization and we collaborate with many other countries of the Amazon. So we have like a matrix which connects all of us. But here and now we are talking about our initiatives, which I represent here today. We have established communication channels with other organizations, including yours, so that we can walk the road together, so we can further consolidate new solutions, which is to safeguard our people and our planet.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I apologize for jumping in. Thank you so much, Majed. I really appreciate hearing from you, as does everyone else. I will be continuing on to the next presenter. Next, we will be hearing from Ofelia Nelva Salazar Shiguango. I apologize for mispronouncing your name, from AMUPAKIN. So Ofelia, if you are here, the floor is yours.
Alipunjam, tukuy ñañaguna turiguna karankuchumandari kukunara kangunara salurani. Muy buenos días a todos los periodistas, amigos, amigas de diferentes lugares de cada espacio que están mirando. Muy buenos días. Mi nombre es Ofelia Salazar, soy mujer indígena ecuatoriana de la selva amazónica de la provincia de Napo. En realidad, yo soy presidenta de la Asociación de Mujeres Parteras Quichuas de Napo, en donde la mujer indígena lucha por el bienestar social y económica.
Ofelia, 1 second. I just want to make sure that the English interpretation is working.
Ofelia, perdón. Un momento. Vamos a checar la traducción. Gracias, perdón.
Can you hear me in English?
We can hear. I can hear you now.
Yep. Okay. Perfect.
Awesome.
There was just a misunderstanding between the interpreters, so we'll start now.
Awesome. Ofelia, can you start from the beginning, please?
Ofelia, perdón. puede empezar otra vez al principio. Gracias, perdón.
Bueno, muy buenos días.
Good afternoon, good morning. My name is Ofelia Salazar. I'm the president of the Association of Women from in Upper Kunin, the Association of Quechua Midwives of Upper Nabo, AMUPAKIN. We are fighting for the well-being of women in cultural and social aspects. This is our aim as an association. We maintain the ancestral knowledge for vertical birthing, which is the main thing that we use. For birthing, We have to provide care for these women. We have to provide materials and ancestral knowledge. And this is how we keep our knowledge from the jungle. We use all the ingredients from the jungle. We can't devalue knowledge, Western knowledge, but in the past, we did not have doctors, we did not have Western medicine. So it was our ancestors and our medicine that was used, medicine that was grown in the fields and in the jungle. We are keeping and safeguarding our knowledge to be able to transmit this to future generations so that it can continue to be valued. In Ecuador, we are not seen as midwives. We are not visibilized as women or as midwives. The struggle continues. As for education, we are losing our language, our food as well, our medicine, everything, our identity. And it's very important that we work with nature, because this is where our knowledge comes from our Pachamama, our Mother Earth, our jungle. So we need to use this whole set of knowledge and to transmit it to future generations. In the past, we had power and we could live with this power. We pass this on to our young generations. And the struggle has to come from women. We women are responsible for looking after the chakra or the forest garden. We need to make sure we can grow these medicinal plants, these foods. This all makes a lot of sense for us. It has a meaning, and we work with this connection between the medicinal plants and the food. We create this union here. And this is the same for our society, for our families. We have this whole system. And we are working, we have such a small clinic or birthing clinic, and we want to continue with these ancestral knowledge. And we need to transmit these to our children. And so I would invite everyone who is listening here to encourage this valuing of our culture, of our knowledge, and this multicultural knowledge. So thank you very much to all of you for inviting us here and for transmitting our messages. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ofelia. I had a question that I would like to ask you. Please. Yes, great. I just wanted to ask, when I do ask you the questions, if you can speak just a little slower, it'll make it easier for the interpreter. My first question is, you spoke about how knowledge is deeply connected to the earth. Can you tell us about specific medicinal plants or practices that have been impacted or lost through industrialization, and how this affects your ability to feed and heal your community?
Bien, lo que hablaba sobre la conexión.
What I was talking about, the connection, it's that our ancestors, when we are born, the placenta and the umbilical cord, which connect the baby to the mother, it is planted in the earth. So this creates a connection between human life and the life of the jungle. And the jungle has life. It produces, and things are born there for humanity. And in our knowledge, ancestral knowledge, we make this connection. In the birth, we use a plant, which is called, it has an indigenous name in Quechua, in our language. And this plant is used, it is drunk before the birth, and this makes our bodies ready for the birth. And it is a type of painkiller. So it helps the mother to give birth. And it avoids women having to go to hospitals. And there are a lot of other plants that we could talk about. But this is one plant that's very important to our practices.
Thank you so much for sharing. I had no idea, and so it's really nice to hear some of those very tangible examples. Another question I did want to ask is, can you talk a little bit about the role of you were mentioning a woman-led political school. How is it protecting Indigenous knowledge? Can you share a little bit about that? What is the role of this woman-led political school?
Bueno, en la educación, como hablo, lo que es
education, as I said, we're talking about ancestral knowledge, and this comes from a place. I can give the example of women, the woman who has this specific knowledge and who then transmits this knowledge onto us, and we transmit that onto our children. So this is the idea of education, that we can talk about lies or different illnesses, and our family educates and cures through these schools. We teach people to not lie and to not rob, for example, and this makes us good citizens. And also through education, we live in nature as we are seen. We're not creating a sort of dance, a folkloric presentation to the outside world. We live as you see us. There are no lies here. And this is what we want to transmit. We want to look after nature, and you can do this around the world.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you sharing that. Ofelia, it is an honor to be here with you. If for any of the press, just a reminder, when you do have questions, please go ahead and raise your hand. We are up. Time is up for this portion of our section with Ofelia. But as we continue, please feel free to raise your hand, and I will call on you to make sure that you are able to ask your question. So with that, I am going to go on to our next speaker. Next, we will be hearing from Amyrose Foll of Virginia Free Farm.
Kwai Paknosian Pahanamak Tawanawak Nia Anabak Tania Pahan Amyrose Foll. I am the granddaughter of the Wabanaki, the Dawnland, and the holy waters of the great St. Lawrence River flow through my veins. So I'm here today to speak to you because we're in a state of crisis, a crisis of environment, foodways, ego, and spirit. We no longer have the luxury of wasting time focusing inward on ourselves, and our world is in need of connection with each other and to it now more than ever. I'm just one of countless Indigenous farmers working in North America, putting out the call to everyone to no longer be content with land acknowledgements and lip service. And I wish that the wider community will see an acknowledgement not as a statement that's empty, but as a call to action to really treat the land and all of our living beings as kin, because our blood and bone dust have mixed with this sacred soil beneath our feet for millennia. And as an heir to this land, the abundance of resources tended for me by generations of farming mothers before me, whose shoulders I stand upon today, I choose to use that intergenerational strength to stand up for food justice, not just for the 30,000 Native people living in the Commonwealth of Virginia, but for the whole Chesapeake Bay watershed and for mutual aid growers of all walks of life across this continent. Food was used as a weapon of war against my ancestors and a means of control. And that being said, I'm not here today to put generational trauma on display. I really don't believe in doing that. I see it as somewhat perverse and performative. And it's really come to be expected of my people we don't want you to feel sorry for us. Instead, I'm here today to reassert that we are the legacy of warriors and matriarchs that would not submit to assimilation, and to really reclaim my ancestral foodways in order to be a living, breathing repository of traditional knowledge to pass on to future generations, to reimagine a new and equitable food shed for the wider community, and to be able to benefit both physically and spiritually from the collectivist ideals of many Indigenous communities that are working hard for all walks of life and all people. We're hard to control when we're healthy and our minds are clear. And with food sovereignty, we are much more difficult to manipulate and influence, as has become the system that we now live in. And that goes for all of us, not just for Native people. Every single person living on this continent today is beholden to the system and just a commodity passed back and forth between big ag and big pharma. So I'm the founder of Virginia Free Farm. We rally teams of selfless volunteers and organizations to create an alternative to our predominant food supply chain, an alternative that empowers everyone, and it really strengthens the fabric of our community for everyone yet unborn. So we work not only to provide food, good food, free of charge, but we also provide the knowledge, the ability, and support to anyone that wants to seize control of their own food sovereignty. We're working hard to reestablish food sovereignty gardens for the tribes here, as well as the beautiful collective of Indigenous diaspora living and working in the Richmond region. I've been working for the past few years to get this staggering abundance of the land that we live on out into the community and in the surrounding area. When the pandemic brought the world to a halt here, I stepped up with my community partners to make sure that our undocumented brothers and sisters were fed and cared for through direct action of emergency food distribution, and brought into the fold a network of intensive rehab homes here to facilitate and support them to be able to grow their own food and raise livestock in order to heal these brothers and sisters, both in mind and body. I believe that no matter what a person's life situation is, each and every one of us fundamentally deserve the dignity of a good meal. And seeing these projects take shape and begin to run on their own as a powerful example of that, it's a powerful example that we are much stronger together than alone. Our model is one that could be easily replicated. And it's my prayer that others will reach out if they need guidance to create their own networks across the country, to use the master's tools of food control and the good health that comes with it to dismantle the system that we live in right now. Our original instructions were to live collectively and care for one another, care for the earth, and share the abundance. The medicine for any tragedy in life is community. And we need now more than ever to return to our ways and bring everyone in with us. Together we save ourselves and we create a living repository of knowledge. So yeah, that is what we're doing here, not just for the tribes. We have a network of farms, community gardens, and we serve everyone from all walks of life and empower people, from people getting out of the Department of Corrections to youth that are entering the juvenile justice system. And teaching them.
Rose,
yes.
I apologize. I do want to open it up for questions. And I do not mean to interrupt. So
no, it's okay.
I feel like you have such a wealth of knowledge, and I'm sure people have questions for you. So I do want to open it up for that. So if any of the members of the press would like to ask a question, please, again, go ahead and raise your hand if you have any questions for Amy Rose. In the meantime, I did actually want to just mention, when I was preparing for today's event, one of the quotes from you that was shared with me was that food was used to exterminate my people. It was used as a weapon of war. And that is just an incredibly powerful quote to just really honestly sit with. And it lends itself to making, I'm curious to hear from you, what does food justice mean?
Man, there's so many different buzzwords swirling around right now about this. So food justice is restorative and reparative. It's not food security. It's more along the lines of food sovereignty. And there's there's continual chatter among social justice groups surrounding food justice and food systems equities. But for some reason, not a lot of people in power really want to pay attention to it because it doesn't serve anyone except for the people that we're trying to heal. So food justice is really healing the sickness that's been brought about by the government purposely, not just on my people, but on all peoples. I mean, you go to Central Virginia, Richmond City, there are zip codes. People are expected to live 20 years less than a zip code just a few miles away.
Mm-hmm.
And that's purposeful. Food justice is fixing that, getting good food to people so that they can be the best students and the best parents and caregivers and live real, full, rich lives.
Absolutely. I do know that there are others that have questions. I don't want to hog all your time. So I would like to ask Cesar Gomez to please go ahead and unmute yourself, ask your question. And Amy Rose, if you can just keep and this is for all the speakers, please keep your responses to 30 to 40 seconds. Cesar, all yours.
Muchas gracias. Solo una pregunta. ¿Me puede
Thank you
ampliar
very much. Just one question I wanted to ask about the food that is being provided, as you've said, to do with the food sovereignty. So what specific foods?
Wait, I don't have interpretation on. Okay.
The question was if you can talk a little bit about what specific foods you reflect on when you're talking about food sovereignty. Please correct me if I misunderstood the question.
Yeah, the question was which foods you're offering to the demographics that you described and whether they play into food sovereignty.
So we actually tailor the food that's going out into different communities to be culturally appropriate to each one. So we're going to prepare inner city Richmond with different foods than we are the Rappahannock tribe or the Monacan Nation or the group that takes care of our Central and Mesoamerican families that live in our area. So we really do try to be respectful and make sure that they are getting what they're used to, what they enjoy, but it's also healthy for them. We also are working with different tribes here. Yesterday, I was with some members of the Monacan, and we are writing demand letters to universities and the USDA and the Smithsonian to give back their ancestral foods and plant matters and seeds. And so those are some of the things that we're doing.
Great. We have one more question for you. Thank you for sharing that. That was a fantastic question. The next question is from Rebecca George. Rebecca, the floor is yours.
Hi. I wanted to ask, what are the obstacles you face in achieving seed sovereignty? Because I know how important that is.
So seed sovereignty has not been difficult for me. I am lucky in that way. In where I live, I've had a lot of cooperation with people and work together with other community groups. We have Southern Exposure Seed Exchange here and are fortunate enough to be able to receive donations of seeds for them. We grow out most of our own seeds and we grow so much, we actually distribute to other mutual aid groups around the country, from Essential Food and Medicine in Oakland to Black Yield in Baltimore and all over the country.
Great. Thank you so much, Amy Rose, for taking time to be here with all of us. I would like to go ahead and transition over to the next section. So we will be hearing from two more groups before we take a quick short break. The next section that we are going to be exploring together is when farming is deemed as an act of terrorism. The next two groups you'll be hearing from will be exploring this theme, really thinking and reflecting on how all too often land rights are under threat by political powers, threatening livelihoods and the preservation of cultural identities. So to explore this further, we're going to first be hearing from Dr. Moaayad of the Union of Agricultural Work Committees from Palestine.
Yes, thank you for the introduction. I am Moaayad Bisharat from Union of Agricultural Work Committees, UAC, working with UAC since 11 years, and I will talk about the situation in Palestine in general. Can you imagine if your rights to access to your land suddenly disappeared or become forbidden? Your right to produce your own food all of suddenly illegal. Your right to produce your folklore or traditional and ethnic ways of farming, all of this becomes suddenly illegal. What you will to do you will surrender, or you will be abandon your land, or will be you get out from continuing their war? According to you, this is like an imagination. According to me, is a reality. You know, it's like to being under occupation. It's like in the war from 1948 to 1967, more than 800,000 Palestinians were refugees. Israel turned them from farmers and producers to refugees to neighboring countries, Lebanon, Syria, and Jordan. From being self-determined, self-reliant producers, we were forced to become consumers. Palestinians were forced into dependency. In West Bank, for example, only 18% of historical Palestine was left for the Palestinians. The rest of it was transformed into a scattered, disconnected pieces of land. Israel has used an apartheid wall, settlements, military checkpoints, and bypass roads to separate us from one another, to have used the tools to deny farmers access to their lands. For centuries, our agriculture was free of toxins and pollutants. We practiced traditional methods of blowing the land and respecting the environment and nature. Now, Israeli authorities and its commercial chemical companies have flooded Palestinian markets with pesticides and agricultural toxins. In Gaza Strip, for more than 15 years, Israel has besieged the Strip and turned it into a large prison housing more than 2.5 million of people. Israel attacks the most densely populated place in the world year after year, leaving hundreds of martyrs and wounded, most of them children and women, and destroying infrastructure and the agricultural sector year by year. For example, entering the sea to fish in Europe and in the Scandinavian countries is means of internment and hiking. In the Gaza Strip, dozens of Palestinians lost their lives as a result of their search for a small amount of fish to be the only meal available for their families. Israel imposed severe restriction on their access to the Mediterranean Sea, allowing them to reach distance only from 3 to 12 miles, which there are no large quantities of fish, and they are also exposed to continuous pollution as a result of depriving the Palestinians of construction of wastewater treatment plants. While UAC had a prominent role in standing with the farmers and their families since its founding 36 years ago in 1986, it helped them to defend their rights to access to land and natural resources, and contributed to reaching 20,000 farming annually. Also, UAC established the local seed bank to preserve and propagation the local seed and indigenous seeds in historical Palestine. In the first national local seed bank which we preserve more than 50 Palestinian local seeds varieties that it's controlled totally by the farmers themselves, not by the commercial companies and the others. All of that, Israeli occupation has classified us as an organization and other 5 Palestinian organizations as a terroristic organization. This organization work to protect human rights and support farmers in feeding their communities, working to achieve the food sovereignty in the base of the human rights based approach. They do this because of UAWC operate in the Area C, which Area C is totally controlled by the Israelis in 1967 lands of historical Palestine. Area C is one of the most fertile and arable land in the West Bank. According to all this.
Apologies. I just want to jump in so we can make sure that we have time for questions. I want to remind all the press, please raise your hand if you do have any questions. We will be calling on you in the order that we see your hands raised. So I apologize if we're not able to get to every question. In the meantime, I did want to ask you, you're just touching upon this, so going off of what you were just saying, can you talk a little bit about what the international response has been to the recent classification of UAWC as a terrorist group by Israel?
Yes, there is a secret session in the UN Security Council to discuss this classification, and they just send a statement that the Israel has not the right to classify the Palestinian civil organization as a terrorist group. And according to that, even the Irish Prime Minister talking that the Israeli take this consideration without talking about evidence to connect this organization with a terrorist act in general. Even according to all of that, we have even the international solidarity from Levaya Campesina, which is the largest peasant movement in the world, which UAWC part of it. They give us a statement, solidarity statement and letters to support us in this regard. And according to that, there is a diplomatic work to stop and to make a pressure on the Israeli government to reverse on this or to freeze this classification.
Great. And, it's often commonly said that threatening a community's connection to the land is the first step in colonization. Can you share your reflections on this?
Yes, it's our work. It's connected to the land. We, from our establishment in 1986, we support the farmers' steadfastness, and we work to facilitate the access of the farmers, the peasants, herders, to their lands, and to protect it from confiscation by the Israelis. Israel is a colonial system. They want to replace the indigenous people by the settlers or colonizers. So they confiscated the land and established instead of it settlement and colonies. They take in the water resources and they build factories and industry areas in these areas. They make all the benefit of the land because they are a colonization, and they didn't let even the Palestinians themselves to benefit from their own natural resources, Jordan River, Tiberias Lake, or even the Dead Sea. All of it's controlled totally by the Israelis because they are use it as an investment.
Yeah, there's a question that we got in the chat, and that is there anything else other organizations can do to support you in reversing the classification?
Yes, it's depend on the level of the organization. If it's UN organization, they can we expect they make a pressure on the UN agencies to make a pressure on the Israeli government to reverse on this classification. On the other hand, there is like a donation or like campaigns to donate to this 6 organization to support them, because it's like if we stop working, especially work, one of the 6, we will hundreds or thousands of the farmers in West Bank and Gaza Strip become alone to face the Israeli colonial system without any kind of support. They cannot continue their work. So our existence as an organization is very important, even to the farmers, to continue with their work. So donation campaign, statement letters, diplomatic pressure, it's benefit to stop this classification.
Thank you so much. I very much appreciate you sharing your experiences with all of us, and especially with all of the so many layers of political oppression that play into it. I do want to take note. We have been sharing resources in the chat. So if anyone wants to learn more, as any of the speakers are coming up, we are sharing resources. Does anyone from the press have any questions as a final call before we move on to the next presenter? All right. Okay. Thank you so much, Moaayad. I really appreciate you being here with all of us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. So we have one more presenter in this section. Again, just a reminder, the section we are currently in is when farming is deemed as an act of terrorism. So next, we will be hearing from Lea Jordan of AMB from the Philippines. You are currently muted.
My name is Lea. I am from Alyansa ng Magbubukid sa Bulacan, or Alliance of Farmers in Bulacan. We've been farming our land for almost 3 decades. These lands are being grabbed by the families of Puyat, the Aranetas. These are big political families in the Philippines. They have been trying to file cases against us. They tried to demolish our houses and uprooted some of our plants, cut our banana trees so that we will leave our farms and leave our houses. Even if we are constantly harassed by the land grabbers, we continuously till our land because farming is the only livelihood that we know. We've been trying to ask support from the government, services from the government for our seeds and other inputs. In the past, they have put us in their list, but no support comes to us. During the pandemic time, the only support that they gave to farmers were loans, and they also continued to demolish the houses of the different farming communities in our province. The local government, even if they know that demolishing the house of the farmers is illegal, they turn a blind eye to it. Until now, we assert our right to our land, and we are hoping that the Department of Agrarian Reform will heed our call. Right now, we are very sad because many of our members are promised by the Department of Agrarian Reform with houses, but what we want is land. where we can plant and where we can continue our livelihood. Our organization have set up collective land cultivation areas, or the bungkalan. Bungkalan is where we plant. We turn idle lands into communal agricultural lands. This is a way for us to defend our agricultural lands and our farms. During the pandemic, it was harder. The situation got harder for us. We didn't have access to the market. We were not able to travel. Travel to the market have been restricted due to the pandemic. Because of this, our organization thought of putting up an online farmers market, or our bagsakan. In bagsakan, the idea is to buy the products of the farmers at a just price and make sure that the farmers are able to have a small profit. We sell these products in our agroecology fairs and other activities like rallies and other mobilizations. So since the pandemic, especially during the first year of the lockdown, we were able to deliver more than 20,000 kilos of vegetables in Metro Manila. This also supported the farmers.
So much. Sorry, I do want to make sure we are able to ask you some questions as well. One of the things I wanted to point out is as I was preparing, one of the statistics that really stood out to me was that to date, a total of 342 farmers have been killed under the Duterte regime, falsely labeled terrorist communists, to justify state-sanctioned violence. I think this is a very important reality for us to, as listeners and as the press, to grapple with. And so, Lea, my question to you is, why are the killings of farmers not being mentioned in the media?
Dahil alam naman po ng kasama rin po siguro yung media na talagang pagtakpan po yung nangyayari po sa
I
aming
think
mga
that the media is also trying to cover what is happening with the farmers. That is what is happening in the Philippines. That is how it is in the Philippines.
And so can you talk a little bit about why the government of the Philippines has designated the farmer movement as a terrorist organization?
ang ano po niyan, yung sa anak pawis po kasi, ang anak
The
pawis po,
farmers in the Philippines, specifically the farmers of KMP, where we are members, we have set up our own party list, the Anak Pawis party list or the Toiling Masses party list. This is our representative to the parliament. But the government, because this party list is very vocal and criticizes the government's policies, they red tag our comrades and our friends. The Philippines, in the Philippines, when you are red tag, you are already in the list of people that can get killed or harassed. In the Philippines, it's almost 350 actually who have been killed because of red tagging and because of being vocal to the government.
Thank you so much. I do want to take a moment to open up the Q&A to the press as well. If anyone has any questions, please go ahead and raise your hand. I've also had individuals put questions in the chat, but we would love to hear your voice and see your face. In the meantime, I do just want to share my personal reflections. I really appreciate you sharing, Lea, your experience. For me, as someone who has been working very closely around the farmers' protest in India, so much of what you spoke about touched really close to home for me as well. So I really appreciate that. Thank you. And we're, part of challenging these systems is that we all stand and fight in solidarity with each other and each other's struggles. So thank you so much. All right. Yeah. So it sounds like we do not have any questions from the press at this moment. If you do have questions and follow-up questions along the way, please note that we are sharing the contact information of our presenters in the chat. We will also, if you do have questions about any topics that are covered and you were not able to get any of the contact information during the presentations, please note that you can always email us at A Growing Culture, and we will be sure to put you in touch. I'll make sure that Josh puts his email in the chat so that you have that as well. So with that, we are going to take a short 2-minute break. Please take some time, grab a glass of water, and we will meet here again shortly in 2 minutes. Thank you, everyone. All right. I'm going to let everyone come back and take a seat. So we go ahead and enter the next section. Great. Thank you, everyone. Just as a reminder, you are currently joining us for the Peasant and Indigenous Press Forum. It is an honor to be here with each of you. My name is Manpreet Kaur Kaura. I am moderating today's forum. We are going to be entering the second half of the forum. As a reminder to all the press, as the presenters are speaking, feel free to go ahead and use the raise hand option. Once the presenter is done, I will be asking questions and we'll be calling on questions in the order I saw the hands raised. In addition, just for the speakers, we're learning as we go. So I will be giving you a warning at 30 seconds before your time is up. So I apologize to previous speakers for not doing that, but we'll be doing that for all future speakers. So thank you again for your patience as we continue to make our way through these next set of very important and critical presentations. I also want to remind everyone to please go ahead and turn on. I myself have kept the English interpretation on as baseline. So if you need whatever language you need to make sure the interpretation is available for, please go ahead and set that on your end at the bottom of your Zoom screen. So you can see the globe icon that is for interpretations. All right, so with that, I would like to go ahead and get started. The next section of presentations that we have with us and are joined by is going to be under the concept of development against farmers. So often great harm around the world is inflicted on marginalized communities in the name of development. Despite years of opposition from Indigenous and peasant groups and no proof of efficacy, golden rice is approved for commercial use. To talk more about golden rice, we are joined by Virginia Nazareno of Stop Golden Rice Network. Virginia, I ask for you to please go ahead and join us. The stage is yours.
Thank you very much to everyone. My name is Nanay Virginia Nazareno. I am from Quezon Province in the Philippines. We are a member of the MASIPAG Farmers Association. I also stand as an advisor to our organization. As a woman leader in our community, the women in our community assert our sustainable agriculture in our communities. We also encourage the young people in our communities and train our young people in sustainable agriculture, because we know that sustainable agriculture is the natural and the food here is not poisoned. We also have our trial farm. In our trial farm, that is where we get our seeds, palay seeds or the rice seeds for our communities. With the help of MASIPAG, we have been banking our seeds. We have been saving our seeds. And we don't buy our seeds from the transnational companies. As a MASIPAG farmer, we saved our traditional seeds because this is the best seed for our community and for our farmers. We do not use poison in planting these seeds. This is natural, and we get inputs from our environment. As a masipag farmer, we resist the implementation and the commercialization of golden rice. We do not know why the government of the Philippines is promoting golden rice. Well, we have many seeds, many palay seeds and rice seeds in the Philippines, and we do not need the golden rice. From what I know, we need chemical inputs to grow the golden rice. This is a burden to the farmers. We do not have much money. We do not want golden rice in our communities. In fact, in our communities, we have food festivals like the Patikim Festival, where we promote our food and we promote our seeds. Here, we show that the farmers can produce food without chemicals. This is also a promotion so that we can encourage more farmers to join us in our movement for sustainable farming. Through the Masipag network, we continue to advocate
Virginia, there's 30
for
seconds
sustainable
left.
agriculture. We advocate for food that is accessible and healthy for everyone. Food that has no poison. That's why we are saying no to golden rice. We have our grains and we will save our grains. That is the work of the women of the Masipag network.
Thank you so much. I apologize. Virginia, I want to ask you some questions if you don't mind. Thank you so much. I apologize for cutting you off, but you have such a wealth of knowledge that I want to make sure we're able to ask some questions to you as well. So, you talk about golden rice. My first question to you is, who backed and funded the development of golden rice?
Sa aking pagkakaalam ay pinunduhan ito ng Monsanto, Syngenta.
This was funded by Monsanto, Syngenta, and Bayer and other transnational companies. Bill Gates is also involved in developing this.
And can you talk a little bit about how golden rice has impacted the health and wellness of farmer and farm worker communities?
It affects the health of the farmers because we do not know golden rice. We are not familiar with it. As I said, why do we need new seeds when these are produced by transnational corporations, and these will burden the farmers?
And
also with the input that will be used in the golden rice, with the pesticides and other inputs, the chemical inputs, it will be very poisonous for our health as well.
Absolutely. Thank you. I do want to remind the press, if you have any questions, please feel free to just raise your hand. And if you prefer, you can, of course, put your questions in the chat, though we would like to see your face and hear your voice. I do have one more question for you. The other question I wanted to ask is, how has golden rice impacted the biodiversity of your land?
It will affect our land because it will contaminate our land. It will also contaminate our traditional seeds. And from what I know, it will have much impact to climate change and it will greatly affect our environment.
Great, thank you so much. I do want to, I see that there is a question in the chat. So I'm going to go ahead and ask that. How difficult is it to save traditional seeds in the Philippines? Has the government or lobbying corporations ever tried to ban seed saving?
The government does not ban the saving of seeds, but they promote using seeds from the transnational corporations. They promote this to people who do not know, who are not well educated about the effects of the golden rice and the effects that it can have on our environment and on our health.
Thank you so much. I sincerely appreciate you being here with all of us and sharing your insights with us as well. For anyone who is interested in learning more, which I encourage each and every one of us to, please go ahead and reference the resources that we've been sharing in the chat. There are many resources out there that I think are really important for us to take time to sit with and truly understand. So thank you again for being here, Virginia. I appreciate you. So with that, we're going, of course. So with that, we're going to go ahead and direct ourselves to our next presenter. Our next presenter is going to be joining us from Kenya. It's Magella Lenatiama. I again apologize for any mispronunciations. Please feel free to correct me once you begin. So we will be joined by Magella Lenatiama of Gurapau from Kenya. You're currently on mute. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Magella. I'm representing El-Molo community in Kenya. El-Molo community are the minority group living in eastern part of Lake Turkana. And their main livelihood is fishing. The economic activity that they are doing is fishing. And they are very few. They are 1,104. As per the last 1,104 are the last census, and we are affected with so many challenges, especially the issue of the land and also the lake, the lake of flowing. Our land are now being now. Many of the companies and like wind farms are coming for the land. And before El-Molo were living in peace, and now the communities are very much, other communities are coming much because there is that influx of people coming to grab the land. And now what I wanted to present much is of the issue of the land. El-Molo land we had a new wind power which has already started the activity and it's ongoing. and it has settled in the community land, and we have never seen the benefits of it to the community. And now the big challenge is the wind farm. Another wind farm, the same wind farm, is extending to the nearest place around the El-Molo community land. And now that is the challenge that the community are facing. Now the community are seeing that it's good for them to come and register their land under their name, because when they register the land under their name, at least they will have a say and they will have a sound, be it national government or county government, so that they just not come and build their pillars and get wind from us, and we don't get anything from the community. And this is contributing so much influx of people of the other community coming to the area. And that one is also affecting the lake, because as they are coming to search maybe for jobs or to look for any ways of survival, they are going to settle along the lake shores, whereby as I said, the El-Molo community is very few in number, so they are settling in very small areas. So the big part of the land there's nobody which is settling. So when they come and get the named land, when they settle for almost 1 year or 2 years, they take that one as their land. So it's really affecting the fishing activity, the El-Molo community, because they are not free to use their territories or their land as they were using before. And also, this is a challenge because it's also bringing a challenge because most of this, the lake and the El-Molo and the people are like one thing. El-Molo so much believe in the lake. Most of their cultural activities are being done in the lake. When somebody maybe asked to marry, his first food has brought from the lake. Maybe if you are to give a shell or give a bird, you are supposed to go to look first for fish so that that child should be given a name. So it's having a very big challenge to the lake. So as now the other communities are increasing, this one increased the number of the people living using the lake. So this one brings the shortage and the foods insecurity, whereby the number of the people who are fishing are becoming very big, it's now growing bigger. So the people getting fish to survive, it's no longer there. So the livelihood of the community is now in great danger because of other community coming for this. So the other issue is about the increase of the lake. This one is also affecting the community and the same land and the same time.
30 seconds.
Yes.
We have 30 more seconds.
This is just affecting the community and also affecting the land, because big part of the land are submerged to the lake. And also the villagers now are now in the islands. They are living in the islands. And that one is making their livelihood to be more hard, because they are not accessing to the national essential needs like education, health, like food. They cannot get food because they are living in the island. Something like firewood they cannot get because they are living in the island. So this one is bringing their life to be more hard because of the issue of the lake increase. And it's really a big challenge to the community. And despite of that, also the issue of the life community living together, it's no longer there, because now some are living in the highland, maybe some are living in the dry land, and now the connectivity of the people is no longer there. And some of the cultural effects are not cultural activities. It's being practiced not as such as before. And this is really affecting the community so much. And despite the fact that all the other communities are now looking for the ways of making the land to be there, to hold their lands to be there. So we are also fighting as a community to the government, to the other, so that we can come with us and try to support us as a community so that we can get our land.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you sharing that. One of the things I can imagine is that probably with COVID, the vulnerability of the local communities has heightened. Can you speak a little bit about the impacts of COVID as well on your community?
Yes, also the impact of COVID is now, we are also affected, but not really with the COVID issue. We are affected with other side effect of COVID because it has really something during the lockdown. It has brought the culture erosion, whereby most of the children went for fishing. So this one brings culture erosion because some of the activities that the community was supposed to practice, it's no longer there. Kids are getting small, they're killing very small fish, and they don't value that there is community rules that are fighting against this fish. And also the community of the issue of community getting good health and good food, for example, diet, because of they don't assess some of the food because now the food are very high, they are very expensive, and also the livelihood is very much worse than it was before because the COVID has really affected. But this is not the fact that the community has been affected by the COVID. No, the community has not been affected by COVID, but so many disadvantages that they have got through COVID. Some of them cannot even access a health facility just because maybe they fear COVID. There's this issue called COVID. What they know most is about the cholera. Cholera has affected them so much, and they really having that one in their mind that if the COVID is the same as cholera, so this is worse. That is the impact. That is the relationship they are bringing as much to relate as COVID. But the impact that COVID has brought the community is bigger than even before.
Can you talk a little bit about what is the change you believe needs to actually happen within your communities?
The change that we need to, it will be for the near communities that who are living with us. There's this issue where we are seeing that will bring problems to the issue of the land, because maybe, for example, if the land is being spread by these big farms, these big companies coming for the land, so there's that issue of land conflict between the communities. Each community might say, this is my part, this is my part. So the El-Molo community are very few in number. Maybe they might lose the land because they don't have political representative, or because they don't go for fight. So that is their fear, maybe to the other communities. And to the issue of the other communities, is that it's better for us to come and make an agreement that if this is your part, this is my part, where will the project, especially to this new one that's coming up, where does the project are, and what are the benefits that we'll get as communities living in there, because we are also living with other communities, so many other communities around it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I do want to make sure if there are any members of the press that have questions, please, this is your chance to ask those questions. I do want to just take a moment to recognize that, oftentimes in the name of global development, the voices and needs of communities themselves are ignored. And this is a really critical and important opportunity for us to actually hear from those communities and actually hear about what they identify are their needs when it comes to the change they want to see, not necessarily the change that corporations believe should happen in the need of hoarding and preserving their own power. So if there are any questions, please go ahead and raise your hand. All right. Sounds like there are no questions. If you do have any questions, the contact information for each of our speakers is available in the chat. So please feel free to reach out to the speakers. You can also reach out to Josh at A Growing Culture, who is happy to put you in touch with any of these speakers on any topics that you wish to cover through your work. So I really appreciate everyone being here. And Magella, I sincerely appreciate you sharing space with me and being here and shining light on the impact of green technologies on your tribe. I appreciate that. Thank you. Great. So now we will be transitioning over to the next section, which is going to be exploring the topic of big industry. So we are going to go ahead, just for the sake of time, I'm going to go ahead and jump in to our first speaker within this section. I would like to invite Emmanuel Ilong of SYNAPARCAM. Please go ahead and join us. We will be talking about the expansion of palm oil plantations and how those are destroying sacred burial and cultural sites in Cameroon. Emmanuel, the floor is yours.
Bonjour. Good afternoon. Good morning. Members of the Association SYNAPARCAM here in Cameroon. Interpreters, sorry, we're having difficulty hearing the speaker. Perhaps if he was to move closer to the microphone.
We're having a difficulty with hearing you. Could you move closer?
So we are members of the SYNAPARCAM Association, which is an association of men and women who are defending their territories and their rights. We have formed this institution because we are the victim of injustices on our lands. Our sites have been destroyed, and we don't even have enough living space in which to grow our crops. We have carried on this fight through our association against the oil palm companies, and also speaking to our government. This multinational SOCOPAM has signed agreements with organizations with such as OECD. And again, we're losing the speaker a little bit.
We're having a hard time hearing.
Peter and Manpreet, let's try to check that.
Je disais tantôt que l'agro-industrie, qu'est-ce qui s'est installé chez nous.
So the agro-industry has caused us to lose a lot of forests, lands, and our sacred sites have been profaned, as well as our places of worship. We have mobilized to fend off this organization. We have been lobbying regulatory bodies so that these corporations which have signed commitments will respect what they have said they will do. They have to respect these commitments to the letter. As of now, we still do not have access to our sacred sites. We cannot render homage to our ancestors. We we are asking that our space be returned, our living space be returned to us. We are Africans, and our traditions require us every year to go and do honor to our dead. Every year, we organized demonstrations to educate, to ask the ancestors to help us. But we can no longer go to our ancestors and ask them for help. Our lives have changed because we can no longer invoke our ancestors and to come and help us. And so we are asking the entire world, especially the international media, because local media, private media, we're talking about our problems, but currently, in the first, early on, but this multinational has bought off all the press, and they're no longer talking about our struggles. But thanks to the international media, we can get our message out, and we can talk about this multinational and its activities. And we can get it to respect, to adhere to its commitments as per various agreements. This forum is an opportunity for our grievances to be heard, for our lobbying to be strengthened, and for this multinational to give us to stop violating our rights, and to among these rights, the right to a healthy environment. And we want the life that we have always had, and we want this life, and we want to be able to transmit it to the future generations. This is all we ask of the multinational and our government. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Emmanuel. I do want to ask you, you talked a little bit as you were speaking earlier about the destruction of of burial sites. Can you talk about how this destruction of burial sites has affected local spiritual and cultural practices?
Yes, we are Africans, and it is our habit to go and feed the dead, to speak to the dead, to help us today, because we say that the dead are not dead. The arrival of the multinational has overturned the lives of our ancestors. We had practices which we wanted to hand down to our children, and this has destroyed our cemeteries, our forests. Cemeteries in 1968, we didn't have the means to maintain the tombs, but now we do that. And what has happened, wherever people didn't have the means to defend their tombs, so they planted oil palms right on top of them. And so we've lost these sites. And we have rights, which we do every year to ask for our ancestors to help us, for example, to deal with, for example, diseases like COVID-19. And that is how we are affected today. We are cut off from part of our body, if you will, because we are no longer in contact with our ancestors.
Thank you. Can you also mention the specific ancestral sites that have been blocked for you today? This is a question from one of our press members. Can you talk about the specific location?
Oui, on
Yes.
appelle ça chez nous les sites sacrés.
We have lost sacred sites, tombs, places where we have buried our ancestors, but also where there's a problem in the village. Let's say children are fighting and women are fighting, then we would call on the ancestors to help us solve the problem. If there is a danger arriving, a village that wants to take over the land of another village, or an inter-village warfare, we would go to that village and we would call on our ancestors, and we would ask them to help us reach peace. When seeds, when we have a bad harvest of seeds, again, we go to the sacred sites and we invoke our gods so that the following year, the harvest would be abundant. If there is no fish, we would then go to them to solve the problem. Whatever the problem is, we would visit our sacred sites in order to request help. And these sites have been lost because of following the arrival of this multinational.
Thank you so much. I do want to ask, are there any other members of the press that would like to ask any questions? Caesar, it appears that you may have a question. And I just want to ask again, my preferences for members of the press to please, it looks like Caesar, that was a comment. I apologize. Robert Corman has asked a question, and that question is, have the Cameroon courts been an avenue of support?
Et la justice camerounaise, c'est une justice qui demande beaucoup de moyens.
To go to court, you have to have a lot of means. As a rural population, without money or much of it, we have filed various motions, but we never won because the multinational had more money.
Mm-hmm.
And they could easily fend off those legal attacks. They have members of parliament in their pockets sometimes, or judges. So they're not thinking of supporting the community, they're thinking of their own interests.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where we are today. We're here in front of the media because we're asking that you communicate our message, because we can't always get through the courts. We're asking, for example, the people, the French press, and there's a lot of NGOs who are supporting us. It is thanks to them that we're here today, because they don't want us to say anything. Our media don't want us to say anything negative about what they're doing. And all they want to do is be left in peace to make profits.
Thank you so much. I sincerely appreciate you being here, and I apologize for any technical issues. Thank you, Emmanuel, for sharing your experience. And as Emmanuel mentioned, this is the purpose of this forum, for all of us to be here together and hear directly from Indigenous and peasant communities on the front lines. So thank you. I would like to go ahead and have our next, invite our next group to present. The next presenter is Bogdoram Maro of Northeast Slow Food Agro-Biodiversity Society from India. Bogdoram is going to be speaking about Indigenous-led biodiversity hotspots under threat by palm oil monopolization. And again, as a reminder to everyone and all the press, if you have questions, please just raise your hand. We want to see your face. We want to hear your voice. That is such an important part of building this very honest and strong human connection. So thank you again. Bogdoram, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Manpreet, for giving me the opportunity to be here today. My name is Dr. Maura, and I'm from Northeast Slow Food and Agrobiodiversity Society from Meghalaya, India. And today I would like to talk about the possible impact of palm plantation in our region, Northeast and Meghalaya. So for millennia, the indigenous people of Northeast India and Meghalaya, which belong to the Indo-Burma biodiversity.
I have problems to hear him. I'm sorry.
Can I come a little closer? Can you hear me now?
I think that there's an echo. Do we want to maybe try without your headphones?
Okay, let me try because my system, the speaker doesn't get. Can you hear me now? Is it okay?
How is it for others?
Boktaram,
Yes.
try to speak a little slower and put some more space. Take your time between your sentences. And we'll try to do our best with the interpretation. But just take some more time to speak a little slower and not to rush. Thank you.
Okay, can you hear me now? Is it okay now?
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
we can hear you.
Okay, so for millennia, the indigenous people of Northeast India and Meghalaya, which belong to the Indo-Burma biodiversity hotspot, have been practicing food sovereignty through the indigenous food system, which is strongly linked to the forest. Even now, go to any indigenous community and they will list to you the food that they bring from the forest. In Meghalaya, almost 100 wild vegetables and fruits are harvested by the community, which include the highly nutritious, one of them, Klengsiar, which has been found to have higher iron content than many other green vegetables found in the market. It is but one of the many. They will also list you the dozens of insects and other animals that they catch in different seasons. Ask more, and they will list you the dozens of aquatic creatures they inhabit the water bodies whose health and vitality is dependent on the health of the forest. And finally, they will also tell you of the shifting cultivation fields from where the community can harvest around 100 different food plants throughout the year. During the fallow period, when the land is allowed to recuperate and the forest to return, they will tell you that they can still harvest many wild foods, which includes wild animals, wild vegetables, and even cultivated plants from these abandoned plots. All this diversity, the product of indigenous knowledge system built over generations, is now under threat. On 18 August 2021, without consulting the indigenous communities, the Union Government of India announced a national mission on edible oils, oil palm, with the aim to bring a total of 650,000 hectares under palm oil by 2025-2026, out of which 328, half of it, will be in the Andaman and Nicobar Islands and Northeast India, which includes Meghalaya. The Union Agriculture Minister, Narendra Singh Tomar, tried to counter the fear of deforestation by stating that cultivation will be done on lands that are already lying unused. Many of such lands are actually the fallows mentioned before, which are defined as wasteland by the Indian government. And many of such lands belong to the community as owned by the community, which will be privatized and appropriated by the corporates for whose benefit the scheme has been introduced. The scheme will in fact herald the corporate takeover of indigenous land in the region, threatening the food sovereignty of the community. In this regard, I would just like to inform that in 2018, NSFAS and FAO were working on a project on indigenous people food system in relation to resilience to climate change. Now, in this year, FAO and NSFAS prepared a document together, which was submitted for the United Nations Food System Summit. And this document, in fact, won the award for the 2021 World Best Sustainability Report by the Holbergs Award and Alfred Nobel Museum, where it said that it was one of the best work for the last 25 years. And in this book, we have shown that from around, there are 8 indigenous people food systems which are highly resilient to climate change. And out of those 8 food systems, 5 food systems are based on jhum cultivation. And one of those food systems is from Meghalaya. In spite of that, one of our member of parliament from India, he had a press conference saying that he's going to go to COP26 and talk about how jhum cultivation is bad for the environment and how we should do something to stop it. And therefore, we in India, in Meghalaya, we had our own press conference to counter that argument. Now, but in spite of that, the Indian government decided to go ahead with a palm oil plantation scheme. In Meghalaya, we have some of the members of parliament from the opposition party who have raised concern about that. We have other people in other states like Mizoram, where right now palm oil plantation is going on for the last 10 years. They are raising concerns about that. But in spite of that, it seems the Union government of India, they're trying to bulldoze all of that and just go ahead with the scheme. And therefore today, while I'm here, yes, I'll finish just one more line.
Okay.
Thank you. And therefore, we therefore appeal to those present here to help raise the issue so that the land and food sovereignty of the indigenous people of Meghalaya and Northeast can be defended. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I did want to note, currently the largest protest in human history is taking place across India. Meghalaya and other states are joining in on the protest. What changes is your organization calling for?
The larger protest which is going on in India right now is against the 3 farm laws. And under those 3 farm laws, you have something which is for the contract farming. Now, when you talk about palm oil plantation, it is going to happen under that kind of a regime, where you will have contract farming, contract being signed between farmers in Meghalaya and Northeast. The problem is that, like the rest of India, where 2/3 of the farmers in India are small and marginal farmers, here the number of the farmers are much smaller, like only 1 hectare. But if you want to do a palm oil plantation, you have to at least have 2 hectares. So this contract, which is going to happen, will have to happen at least by first consolidation of land holdings, and this will be a common property, common land from the community, which will be privatized, and then it will be given to the corporate. Because land corporate, because of the 6th schedule in India, land cannot be transferred, but benami can happen, which means that somebody owns the land actually, but the land belongs to the tribal. So that, and when it happens, it will lead, because even now in Meghalaya, 70% of the households are landless, according to the Census of India 2011 report, which I believe is wrong. I think it's 30%, but that is still a very big number. Once you have palm oil plantation, in fact, in Mizoram, it has happened. People are, because of palm oil plantation, people are registering land as their own private land. So if this happens, it will lead to landlessness. It will lead to loss of our land to corporate. In fact, there are some corporate who knew already before the Indian Prime Minister announced the scheme about palm plantation, they knew that it was going to happen. So, I mean, this is just a corporate takeover of our indigenous land.
Absolutely. I do want to pass George for your question.
Hi. I just want to know, do we know the corporation specifically pushing for palm oil plantations in India in these regions?
Yes, there are three corporations here. That is the Ruchi Soya, which is Baba Ramdev. Maybe you know Baba Ramdev. I mean, he's a yoga teacher who became quite rich because he's very close to the current Indian government. Then you have 3F, which is from Telangana, and then you have Godrej. Out of those three, when there was a piece by in Caravan by Kim, I think her name is Kimi Kolni. She's a reporter from Mizoram, who found out that when she went to these Ruchi Soya companies, she asked the employees out there. They told her that they knew already the Indian government was going to announce this scheme. The Baba Ramdev knew already, so which means that, I mean, like the plan was already there for a long time. So the whole idea is to benefit some of the crony capitalists in the country right now.
And if I can ask just one more, do we know, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot. Yeah, thank you. Sorry.
All right. With that, I actually think we are out of time. We will be transitioning over to our next presenter. I did want to ask Bogdaram, can you please add the name of the corporations to the chat when you have a moment? We'd really appreciate that. So then we're going to go ahead and now move on to our final presenter. So the last group that we will be hearing from is going to be joining us from South Africa. We are going to be hearing from Sinegugu Zukulu of Sustaining the Wild Coast from South Africa. We will be hearing about indigenous coastal communities, marine life under threat by big oil.
Thank you very much. And good evening to everyone. I hope you can hear me from that side. My name is Sinegugu Zukulu, and I come from Bonderland, that is the indigenous people of the Kingdom of Bonderland, which is along the east coast of South Africa. My community, which is the Amadiba, has been battling against an imposed mining company by the government of our country, an Australian mining company, for 20 years now, where the government is forcing it and the people are saying no, because if the mining is allowed to go ahead on our land, it is going to threaten the livelihoods, it's going to threaten the very essence. People and the land are one. So allowing the land to be raped by a mining company will be detrimental to the rights of the people and to the self-determination. As if that was not enough, we have just been told this last month that also government is planning to issue a license to Shell, the Shell, which is the international oil company. And this has caused a groundswell. I'll be sharing on the chat some of the films and what is happening right now, some of the newspaper articles. So, and we are opposed. So from the 1st of December, the plan is that Shell will be given a license to do to explore for oil and gas in our ocean. And we are, as a community, very opposed, and all the coastal communities along the Bonderland coastline are very opposed to this, because science is telling us that this is going to cause huge damage in our ocean. Already the marine life is potential to cause the tissue damage, to affect the reproduction. You can see the big whales pitching themselves. It may affect the hearing ability of the marine life. And also, if the gas or the oil is discovered, that there is a potential for pollution of our ocean. The ocean is a source of livelihood, spirituality, tourism. And the worst part is that our coastline is an MPA, marine protected area. Therefore, it will be impacted on. Our constitution in South Africa guarantees us a right to a healthy environment. Section 24 of the Constitution provides that everyone has a right to a healthy environment, and also a right to have an environment protected for the benefit of the current and the future generations. So this constitutional right is also being affected, or will actually be taken away if the exploration is allowed to go ahead. So we are therefore opposed to Shell to explore for oil And also there are other countries as well that we know Shell has been operating on in the Great African continent. We know what happened to the Niger Delta in Nigeria, where they explored for oil, and then there was an oil spill. The people had to stop fishing because their fishing grounds were polluted. They could not produce their crops from the land because of all the oil spills. So we are therefore saying, okay, and therefore we are saying in the face of climate change, this and also letting this go ahead is a disregard for human rights for indigenous people. Therefore, the world may not live by oil alone, and to hell with Shell. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Speaking about Shell, can you tell us a little bit about the seismic surveys that Shell recently announced? What are the implications and harms that can be caused?
This is a huge thing. As I'm saying, I'll be sharing some links on the chat box. So when the exploration happens, so it is said to begin on the 1st of December, and it's going to carry on for 5 months, and they're gonna be shooting for every 10 seconds to the ocean floor, sending these waves, which they say is, scientists are telling us that this is equivalent to what do you call the nuke bombs. So the impact of what this is going to have in terms of the marine life, it's going to have a huge, it's equivalent to an atomic bomb. So, and they will be sending in these shots or shooting into in order to cause the vibration down to the ocean floor, which penetrate the earth crust and then come back to report in order to tell where the oil reserves are. So it's a huge, which is going to affect the marine life and also affect the livelihood of the coastal communities. Okay.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I do want to open it up to any questions from the press. Please raise your hand and we will be sure to call on you in the order that we see hands raised. So I'm going to go ahead and allow for a moment. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to raise your hand. Okay. Right. It seems like we may have lost our speaker, or it seems okay that we just had spotlight removed. It is okay. All right, if you do have questions, we have shared the, oh, Rebecca has a question, it seems.
Okay.
Rebecca, if you want to unmute yourself, please feel free.
I was just going to ask, can you highlight some of the traditional ways that have been lost due to the oil, the explorations that's going on? Any few examples you could share?
Okay, one I have shared on the chat box. I've shared a video that one of the scientists in South Africa has actually put together in order to share and to show exactly what the impact is going to be. I'm not a specialist on the marine and all that, and that's why I'm sharing in terms of what the experts are saying. There is also an article there which I've also shared, which has just been published by Daily Maverick today, if I'm not mistaken. So, and but also I think it is important to highlight that if you were to Google a map that shows the oil exploration, the oil and gas exploration in the Southern African, you will see that every piece of our ocean is actually being put up to this transnational corporation. So there isn't a part of our coastline that has been spared. So they've cut it into pieces that are being given to corporates for them to go ahead. And there's a big drive to, and I'm saying this is not just a South African challenge, but it is a global challenge, because many other countries, you will see when you Google the maps, you will actually see that the impact that is huge, and the move away from the land, from fracking the land to now to actually to explore from the ocean floors is something that is really big globally, and which is going to have a devastating effect, not only just on climate change, because you are going to see an increase. So in other words, we've just had the COP26 where the countries signed, but now you have this new Shell being a very big international corporation coming in to explore for oil and gas, despite in the face of climate change. So for us, that's very concerning. But most pressingly for us is with the impact this is said to have on the lives of Indigenous people, not just in our coastline and in South Africa, but globally. People who go out to sea every day to fish. The science eyes, I would refer you to that film that I've shared there on YouTube. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sinegugu. I really appreciate you being here with us and sharing these amazing resources as well. Just as a reminder to all of those tuning in to the forum, we have been sharing resources throughout the presentations in the chat. You've also received resources about and briefings about each of the groups. So please feel free to reference those. Those briefings also contain contact information, which you will be receiving after the forum. So please, I encourage each of you to take some time and sit with your notes. And if you do have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. All right, so that was our last presenter. And I feel that we can all agree that ending with the quote "to hell with Shell" is a great way to really conclude our presentations for today. I want to thank each and every one of you for being here and being present and sharing space and creating space and centering these incredibly important voices that are all too often sidelined. This is just one step towards building a stronger connection between peasant and Indigenous communities and media groups. If you would like to connect with farmers, farm workers, Indigenous leaders, fisher folk, we are happy to connect you with them. Please feel free to reach out. Josh, I will have you put your contact information in the chat for everyone to reference one more time. And honestly, I would like to thank all the people who made this event possible, not just all of you who are here with us, which are so critical and important, but also all of the volunteers that made this event truly a success. I also want to thank KMP, the Peasant Movement of the Philippines, Asian Peasant Coalition, all the interpreters, Peter, Bashir, Antonio, Becky, and Brendan, the technician, alongside everyone else. There have been so many people behind the scenes working to put this together. I really appreciate everyone's time, contribution, and dedication to creating these very important spaces. A lot went into creating this event. And as I mentioned at the beginning, this is something that we will be hosting quarterly. So I really do hope to see you all in 3 months. We will have sign up will be rolling We will be sharing updates. So if you have any questions, and if you publish an article or any form of work that you would like to share with us, please do send that our way by emailing josh@agrowingculture.org. You know, this is the second time we are hosting the Peasant and Indigenous Press Forum, and it is you know, a process that we are learning and evolving along the way. And I think that that is such an important part of communal growth. And so if you do have any feedback, we will be sending out a feedback forum. So please feel free to share that with us as well. And we also have a link to donate to help make sure that these events are possible as we continue to grow and create space for these critical conversations. So just from a logistics standpoint, I am going to be here for the next 30 minutes. For any members of the press that would also like to join me, and for any of the peasant and indigenous groups that can continue to be here, I just want to acknowledge we are tuning in from so many different time zones right now. So there are some individuals who are currently awake, even though they should be really getting some rest. So I appreciate everyone being here and joining from all those time zones. So I will be here. If you have questions, please feel free to raise your hand, and we can go ahead and open it up to a general Q&A. Thank you again. And I want to just say that, you know, throughout this process, if I did mispronounce anyone's name, I sincerely apologize. And I just want to encourage each of us to take the time to learn how to properly pronounce each other's names and organizations. So thank you.